it has to be cultivated. It's like a plant that you water, that you fertilize, that you pay attention to, and it grows over time.
Greetings and welcome to another episode of Breaking Bread, the podcast brought to you by Apostolic Christian Counseling and Family Services. I'm Matt Kaufman, and today I have Kaleb Beyer with me. Hi, Kaleb.
Hi, Matt. It's good to be here.
We're going to speak about friendship in marriage,
Mm-hmm.
and I think perhaps you could provide a little bit of forest for the trees with this topic a little bit on where friendship finds its place in marriage, what role does it play, and it's probably a partner among other things, right? So set that stage a little bit.
Sure. My mind goes to the triangular model of love. The concept is that there is not just one definition of love. So if you think of a triangle, at the base of the triangle would be commitment or agape love. And then on the left side of the triangle would be emotional intimacy, or the Greek words often thought of as phileo, which is friendship, and then storge, which is really about affectionate familial love. And then on the other side, the right side of the triangle, would be romance and passion. And so what we're focusing on with this is just that friendship or the emotional intimacy part of love.
So there is an important component of marriage that is friendship, okay? And so you've kind of set that up between agape, self-sacrificing love, romantic love, and now this friendship love.
I think of Priscilla and Aquila, and it doesn't give us a lot of context as far as what their relationship exactly looked like, but they were together in ministry, and I have to think that friendship was part of their relationship.
You really get a sense with them. You can't say one name without the other.
Yes.
With Priscilla and Aquila.
Yes.
And friendship certainly is all over the scriptures.
We find it clear back in Genesis, in the creation account, when God, after he creates, he reflects on each day, and he sits back and says, this is good, right? This is good. But then in that creation account, there's one particular moment where he says, this is not good. It's not good for man to live alone. And it's an incredible thing, Matt, to think that here Adam was in perfect communion with the God of the universe, and yet it wasn't good for him to be alone.
You almost get a sense, too, Kaleb, that God was kind of working to this point of need, almost as if it was as much for us to understand this. It was almost like, Adam, do you see? Or, you know?
Without this relational component, that it's not complete. It's not, my love isn't full, or the expression or experience of my love.
Right.
Yeah. And even as he calls in there, he calls her a helpmeet. And if you look at the root meaning of that word, it's the same word that's used oftentimes throughout Psalms and Proverbs, sometimes of God being our help. I think Azer is the Hebrew word, but it's that aspect of help or companion or aid. And so it's that component, I guess, that is an instrumental part of marriage, an important part for us to spend some time thinking about.
So this is somebody coming alongside of equality, and where there's a passing back and forth of benefit and blessing.
Yes.
Is that right?
Absolutely.
Are we starting to flush out what friendship means?
Yeah. I think the word helper has got a really negative rap in our culture. But at the same time, it's used of God himself as being our helper. And so I think the helper role that the wife has, the helpmeet, is a God-given role she can fulfill.
I would presume, just because we're having this conversation, that sometimes friendship in marriage does not exist.
Yeah.
Or perhaps it's not as healthy as what it could be.
Yeah.
Is that a little bit of the impetus?
It is.
Of the conversation?
Yep, it is. It's often the first thing to go.
Really?
That's an overgeneralization, but friendship over time, if you think about a couple, just an average couple, this isn't true for everyone, but during their stage of engagement, getting to know each other, there's excitement, there's friendship, there's romance, okay? What happens is you go through the couple's life, it's like reinforcement erosion, right? No longer do we reinforce our love for each other, our appreciation, our thankfulness. We kind of just, life, stress, transitions, all create an atmosphere where if we're not intentional about continuing to cultivate friendship, it doesn't keep going.
It doesn't keep going. That's interesting, Caleb. And as I think about that triangle that you laid out, you know, that bottom one of agape, of commitment, so to speak, you know, I can see you just strong-arm that in marriage. So, all right, I'm not letting that go, and so that endures. And the romance plays on so much body chemistry, right? And hormones and such. There's a lot that keeps that, you know, just going. And then this friendship piece.
Yeah.
I can now, when you say it like that, I can see, okay, that requires like some real effort.
Yes, it does. Even as you take it outside of the marriage relationship, of just thinking of those two different components, I think it's possible. You challenge me here, Matt, but I think it's possible for us to agape our enemies, but would it be very difficult to phileo, right, our enemy. That kind of love to an enemy is nearly impossible.
Yeah. Okay, so now you've really you've really juggled up some of these terms of love in my head, and I love it because agape is so deep. But this phileo has really been redeemed in a sense by this conversation that this is a really beautiful love, and it's not one that's easy. I would completely agree. It would be hard to phileo my enemy.
Yeah. It's kind of that affection and tender and desire to be with
and
them.
And
like.
Sometimes it's easier to love a person than to like them.
Yeah.
So we're really getting to this like part. I can will love almost, but how do you will like? Isn't that what we're coming down to?
Yeah, for sure. It's something that you can't will. It has to be cultivated. It's like a plant that you water, that you fertilize, that you pay attention to, and it grows over time.
Help us with this. Are there some spaces for us to be thinking about in order for us to grow in this likeness of each other?
Yeah. Yeah, there's 3 areas that I think it's helpful to consider in this area of friendship. The first is just kind of knowing one another in a deep sense. The second is kind of that sharing of affection and appreciation for each other. And then the final and third component is this aspect of, in the small moments of day-to-day life, that we are intentional about turning towards each other and seeking each other in those moments rather than moving away from each other. So those are 3 areas that are helpful to think about.
Let's start with that knowing piece.
Yep.
I mean, I think that is so automatic early on. I mean, you mentioned the engagement part, right? So much of that engagement time is learning to know, isn't it?
It is, and excited to learn.
What's your favorite this? What's your favorite that?
Yeah.
How did that make you feel? How did you respond to that?
Yeah.
And so much of the explosion in the engagement is like all of a sudden seeing this person a lot deeper.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So I think it's natural that knowledge does follow upon favor and love for a person. Right? Is that what we're speaking of?
Yeah, it is. It's really that inner world of our spouse. So one researcher calls it cognitive maps. Think of a map laid out in front of you, and you get to study and learn the territory. Okay, so for our spouse, that would be, what are their worries? What are their hopes and dreams? What are their aspirations? Who do they feel most connected with? How is God working in their life? Our spouses change. So it's not like, oh, I know my spouse when we're engaged, and so there's nothing really more to know about them.
What are some good questions to ask?
Yeah, simply asking each other, what was the high and the low of your day? Right? That's a simple kind of way of understanding what's really heavy on your heart, or what are you looking forward to, excited about?
When I hear you say that too, Caleb, I hear you like touching on those emotions. What made you happy today? What made you sad today? What made you excited? Or what made you... You know what I'm saying? And those are kind of telling, aren't they? Yeah,
they are. They connect you to your spouse's connection to what they are excited about. And so I can share in that, or, what they're worried about, so I can pray for that, or, send a note tomorrow when that event comes that they're worried about. See, now that I know that and I'm carrying it with me, that my spouse is with me throughout the day, whether I'm present with him or her or not.
Yeah.
And so it's that knowledge that moves me into certainly the next level, which is a sharing of appreciation and affection. But if I don't have the knowing part, it's kind of hard to really connect deeply in it.
You know, Kaleb, too, as you presented this, asking questions to know, a lot of times I think it's natural for us husbands to ask questions to solve or to help, right? How can I help you? And there is a place for that. But we're really saying, no, we're just asking questions to know so that my spouse knows that I know.
Yes. Yeah.
And there's some sort of solace in that.
Yeah. When my spouse can, call out, hey, you know what, I'm really thinking about you today at this upcoming event that I shared with them 2 days ago or a week ago, that's like they're with me.
Yeah.
They're here in this moment. And I think that's something very powerful that connects us at a friendship level.
Here's one. What song have you been listening to or something like that? I think is, what book have you been reading? And why did you like it or something?
Yep. Or even, certainly in a spiritual sense, what verses stood out to you, or how do you feel like God has been speaking to you? In what ways do you feel like He's prompting you or challenging you? That sort of thing, to move to a spiritual peace.
The point that we've been saying is that this phileo love, this appreciation love, can grow. And some of these questions help us with that. Is there a natural progression that when you learn to know a person, then you are set up to start to like that person? You know what I'm saying? Is there a connection there? And I'm thinking about that couple that, our like has really fallen off.
Yeah. Yeah, there is a connection. If we know our spouse deeply and intimately, if we're dwelling with them according to knowledge, as we're reminded 1 Peter, if we're sharing, actively expressing appreciation for one another, and we're intentionally kind of seeking those moments where we're connecting to each other, that leads to an atmosphere, if you will, of grace, of love, of willing to extend forgiveness. So it cultivates an atmosphere where I'm willing to actually excuse mistakes that my wife make much easier than I would if that was not present. When I have an atmosphere of grace, it's much easier to walk through conflict and differences than when I don't have that there. So oftentimes when couples come in distress, one of the areas that we work, certainly we want to work through differences and conflict, but at the same time, we want to build and foster friendship.
Kaleb, thanks. What a great start to such an important topic. Next time, we will pick up with the last 2 tips for strengthening friendship in marriage, sharing affection and appreciation for one another, as well as turning towards one another in the small moments of life. We look forward to that conversation. Thanks for being with us, friends. If you want more teaching on marriage, be sure to visit our website. Last October, this agency hosted our first marriage conference. Audio and resources have been captured on our website. Look for, or just Google, Cultivating Connections Marriage Conference to find these resources.